Today we are going to discuss the first chapter of Snapshots, a supplementary textbook prescribed for 11th grade students studying in CBSE board. The title of the chapter is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse, authored by William Saroya. William Saroya was an Armenian-American playwright, novelist and a short story writer. Even our present story, The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse, has got an Armenian background. This story is about two Armenian boys who are cousins. One is Iram, who is just 9 years of age, and the other one is Murad, who is 13 years of age. And they belong to a very poor family, so poor that they even cannot afford to buy a horse. However, they loved horse riding. So the older cousin Murad, he decides to steal a horse. He steals it and comes to his younger cousin Iram, and he offers to give him a ride. They continue their horse ride for some days till they come to their senses and they decide to return the horse because their conscience pricks them. They know that their tribe is known for honesty and trust, and they cannot continue this continue with this stolen horse for a long time, so they decide to return it. Now, there are a number of lessons that we can draw from this story, but before going into the details of the lesson, let's try to understand in detail what happens in this story. Let me narrate, or let me tell you the building blocks of this story quite in detail. It's very simple, very easy to understand. Now, the story begins in a mood of nostalgia. Iram, the narrator, is just 9 years of age, and his cousin Murad is 13 years, as I mentioned in the introductory part itself. The older cousin is slightly crazy, but is highly adventurous as well. Now, the narrator remembers vividly that Murad came to his house one fine morning as early as 4 o'clock and he was tapping at the window of Iram's room. Iram jumped out of his bed and he could not believe what he saw before his eyes. He couldn't believe what was there, the particular sight that was outside of his window. His cousin Murad was riding a beautiful white horse. That's what we read in the story. Murad asked him to be quick and jump out of the window, or come out of the window if he wanted to take a ride. The narrator had a longing to ride. He loved taking horse rides. For a moment he might have thought that he was dreaming, but again he understood that it was not a dream, it was in reality, that his cousin Murad was standing outside the window and he was offering him to come out if he wanted to take a ride. Now, although he wanted to take a ride, but as I mentioned, the family or his tribe was so poor, his family was so poor that they could not afford to buy a horse. They could not even steal one because they were known for trust and honesty. Now, the narrator knew that his cousin Murad could not have bought the horse since he could not afford to buy one. And if he could not have bought it, definitely he must have stolen the horse. That's what we read in the story. I will not point out to the lines, but you can yourself read it in the story. He was quite sure that he must have stolen it. The narrator refused to believe that he had stolen it on his second thought, because he knew that no Garoglanian family or no member of this tribe could be a thief. Such was the reputation of this particular tribe. Then the narrator Iram asks Murad where he had stolen that horse. Murad did not give any reply to this question, but he simply asked his cousin to leap out of the window if he wanted to take a ride. He knew that Murad was crazy regarding horses. Who knew? Iram knew that his older cousin Murad was crazy about horses. Now, many sorts of thoughts, different type of thoughts are flashing through his mind. Now, he's thinking that stealing a horse just to fulfill one's hobby, just to pursue one's hobby or take a ride, is not a serious form of theft or not a serious form of crime. That's what he thinks. Well, as we read further, we understand that the narrator leapt into his clothes. That means he put on his clothes very quickly. He jumped down to the yard from the window and leaped up to onto the horse behind his cousin Murad. Now, after he comes out, that means after both of these cousins or these brothers are together, we read that they start taking the ride and they take rides to different places. Now, we will not go into the details of the places that they took their ride, that you yourself can read and understand. But as we come to the latter part of the story, as we go to the last part of the story, we read that one afternoon, his Uncle Khosrow is yet another character in this story. His Uncle Khosrow came to his house for coffee and cigarettes. Now he was just still sipping coffee and smoking cigarettes in the parlor. Another visitor arrived. A second visitor arrived, and this visitor was a farmer. His name was John Byroe. Now he was an Assyrian. If you read in the story in the text, you will read that out of loneliness he had learned to speak Armenian. So he was very poor, and he was not Armenian by birth. He was an Assyrian. He was also served coffee and tobacco. Who was served? The new visitor, John Byroe, the farmer, was served coffee and tobacco. Now, in a sad mood, in a sad tone, he mentioned that his beautiful horse that had been stolen last month was still missing. He had not yet managed to rediscover his horse. Now, we read in the story that farmer John Byroe was a large man with a gentle heart. He was very good at heart. He had to walk 10 miles to reach there, and his left leg had pained him. That's what we read in the chapter. The horse had cost him $60, and his saray was of no use to him without the horse. Saray means the horse-drawn carriage was of no use to him without his horse. Now, as soon as the farmer goes away, now this conversation or this narration was overheard by whom? By Aram. Now, Aram must have been afraid. After this, he runs immediately to his cousin Murad's house, and he narrates whatever he had heard. He tells them that a farmer had come, John Byroe had come, and he had narrated that his horse had been stolen and the horse was still missing. Now, these two brothers, these two cousins, they have some conversation, and they decide to return the horse. But before that, they want to take some rides. They want to learn horse riding. After all, they have stolen this horse. So every morning for 2 weeks, Murad and Aram took the horse out of the barn at deserted vineyard where they were hiding it, and rode it. That means for 2 weeks they continued to ride the horse. Before returning it, they just want to make some practice. They wanted to fulfill their desire. They wanted to carry on what they had longed for many years. Well, one morning we see that they came across the farmer John Byroe. They met farmer John Byroe, the owner of the horse, which is seen at the latter part of the story. Now, Murad greeted him. The older cousin greeted him. The farmer studied the horse eagerly. He looked at his horse. He must have easily identified the horse and wished them good morning. We read in the story that he asked the name of his horse. What is the name of your horse, boys? Then Murad replied that they called it My Heart. See what a beautiful name they had given to the horse, My Heart. John Byroe called it a lovely name for a lovely horse. He was certain that it was the horse which had been stolen from his barn from him many weeks ago. He asked if he might look into the horse's mouth. He wanted to examine and be very sure that the horse was his. He wanted to be sure of it. So on examining the teeth of the horse, the farmer was ready to swear that it was his own horse. But since the fame of their family, whose family? The family of these two cousins, the family of Aram and Murad, was so well known for honesty, they were known for maintaining high moral standards, that he would not call it the stolen horse. Still, he called it the twin of his horse. Now, what happens in the last part of the story? Now we are coming to the climax. Early next morning, the boys took the horse to John Byroe's vineyard and put it in the barn. And after putting it, what did Murad do? We read in the story that Murad put his arms around the horse, pressed his nose into the horse's nose, patted it, and then they went away. Now, that afternoon, the owner of the horse, John Byroe, came to their house in the Surrey and showed the narrator's mother that the horse that had been stolen was later on returned. He was surprised to find the horse stronger than ever and better tempered too. So here comes the end to this story. the story entitled The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse. Now it's very simple, it's very easy. Now when I was pondering over this story as to what we can derive, the lessons that we can learn from this story, I concluded at least two things that we can learn from this story. One is, it is possible to make mistakes. We as humans do make mistakes. It is not nothing strange. We make mistakes. To err is human, that has been said in English. But the only thing is that whenever we make a mistake and when we come back to our senses, when our conscience pricks us, we ought to repair it. These two boys, these cousins, they had stolen the horse, but when they realized that that their family was known for honesty and trust, the way they had taken it, they went and kept it back. I think their decision was very much correct. It was very right. There was no need for them to go and say, that they had stolen the horse and make it a big issue. They simply, when they came to their senses, they went and they placed the horse the same way they had taken it. So always remember to get rid of your guilty conscience. If your conscience pricks you, try to get rid of it. Try to set things right. That will give you a peace of mind. That is the first lesson that we can derive from this story. Secondly, in this world, no one is impeccable, immaculate and infallible, or in other words, no one is there in this world who is incapable of making mistakes. Everyone can be tempted at times. Although we are not hardcore criminals, I am talking about normal people, people who are known for maintaining high moral standards, who are known for maintaining good values in life. Even at times they can be tempted, but that doesn't mean that they have left their track and they cannot be corrected. It may be possible that due to some reason, just with a desire to fulfill their suppressed emotions, their suppressed feelings, sometimes a person is tempted to commit a crime, to make a mistake, but that doesn't mean that that single act can be taken in order to judge that person. If I were to put it in a little more relaxed way, I can say that no person should come and tell me, "Oh, Kundan, it was not expected of you. How did you do that?" Just by looking at you, no one can imagine that you could have done this. You could have done this mistake. You could have made this mistake, or you could have committed this crime. No, why not? I am a human being. Every human being may make mistakes. To err is human, to forgive divine. So with this, I would stop today's video. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you like it. I will be coming up again with videos of classes 10, 11 and 12. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.